will be given today by Max Baker of Perry Christian Church. Max.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, it's so great to be here today with friends and just to learn more about each other, to share this time and a love of sports. And Father, we're so thankful for your presence here and that you would be with those who weren't able to be with us. And as we look forward to the hope of Christmas, we pray for those that are going to be competing this weekend here in Canton. We pray for protection and just a great time for them to enjoy our city and to see our love of sports. We thank you, we praise you, and ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I hope all your teams won for you this last weekend. Introduction of special guests. We have a few today. First of all, down here in front, Start Media, TJ Downing, and his partner in crime usually is Sam Berkwood. Sam is still under the weather, so we've missed Sam. Sam, we hope you're back with us next week. And somewhere out in our crowd is Canton Repository reporter in sports. I see him, Steve Dorshek. Steve, please stand and be recognized. Thank you. Club recognition of our corporate sponsors, which are up on the screen and behind me here on the banner. All Cares Primetime Health, we thank them. Dr. Peter Ferguson, longtime member of our club and local. Wilkshire Golf Course and Liberty Ford. Again, thanks out to all of them. To my right, up here on the podium dais, Trustee Jim Evans is responsible for the ministers this week. We heard from Max Baker. We thank him again. To my left, your right, our featured speaker today, Doug Ute with the OHSAA. And his presenter is Don Spinell today. Announcements. As always, please turn your cell phone and noise emitting devices completely off or at least silenced. And thank you very much. Today is the last day to purchase the club hoodie. If you need one, they are $40. You can see Jim Mitchell after today's meeting in the back room in order to order them. Okay. Last week, we were, of course, at the Nash Center at the Pro Football Hall, and pleased to announce that we had 236 attendees last week. That and the first one that we held there earlier in the season with 237. So hopefully our next one, which will feature a Hall of Famer, we can break that. We're right around 230. I'd like to see 240 plus in there. They certainly have room for us, and they've been great hosts. As of right now, leading into this afternoon, we have 116 pre-sold, and you can get them again today at the end of our session. And then next week is the last time. So write yourself a little note or whatever it takes. You'll need $15 to make it to the hall. So the tickets are for the 12th. We will have a Hall of Famer as the guest speaker. You can see Jim Evans or Doug. I'm sorry. I got Doug on the mind. I can't wait to hear him. Dennis Manziel in the back room for your tickets for that. You will be able to have and choose from honey pecan chicken or scrod. I don't know how many had scrod last week, but that was excellent piece of fish that I had at the hall. Christmas collection is for our servers here at Tozzis. It will take place each of the next 2 weeks, okay? So December 5 and December 12 over at the hall. I'm sorry, not at the hall, December 19th. So we're gonna do it the 5th next Monday and the 19th when we're back here. Now, I realize that some of you tip weekly, and for those that don't, here's your chance to show your appreciation to our fantastic servers who week in and week out do an awesome job of getting our meals out to us hot and our desserts served. And I don't know, a lot of you don't stay afterwards. I'm always staying for a few minutes. Their cleanup is like ants in motion. It's really something to see. At the end, when we all disperse, they are doing just a fantastic job of getting this place spick and span and ready for their next function. So again, break your piggy banks and start counting the dollars that you might be able to put towards them if you're not a weekly tipper. One club illness to report. Longtime friend of mine, and sits over here at table 8 on the far corner with Jack Welsh and that group of guys, is Bob Blyer. Many of you know Bob, and we need to keep him in our prayers. They thought he suffered a stroke. They ran tests. He did not, but he is having some complications. He's been unable to attend for about 2.5. This might be his 3rd week that he missed, but to keep him in our prayers. He's been at Woodlawn, and they're going to be moving him to a different facility. They can't figure out why, if he didn't have a stroke, he has some difficulty with his right hand. So again, Bob Blyer, we need to keep in our prayers for Bob. Our raffle tickets at this time. Get out your tickets. I'm not told that we're using 2, so we're going to have our speaker draw the winner, and it's for $166 today. And Jim Osborne, Ozzy back there in the back, raise your hand and he will come to you with the cash. So get them out. All righty. That's the one. Thank you, sir. All right. And the winning ticket is 671. You got it already? 494. 494. Where are we? Right there, Jack Hartley. All right, Jack.
I want a recall.
495. Ozzy's heading to you.
Yeah.
And while he's getting the money to Jack there, I'm pleased to announce that next week our speaker will be former Ohio State and current Akron University head baseball coach, Greg Beals. We'll hear from Greg next week. And to introduce our speaker today is club member, also Inter Valley Commissioner, Eastern Ohio Interscholastic Administrators Association's Hall of Fame, retired from education in 2018 after 32 years, and the last 18 he had served as the Minerva Athletic Director. Please give a Hall of Fame welcome for presenter Don Spinell.
Thank you. Great to see everyone today. And for those of you who coach me, how about this? I'm up here on the podium and you're not. You never thought that would happen. Today's speaker has been the executive director of the high school since September of 2020, Doug Yu. During his educational career, he's been a teacher, a coach, athletic administrator, principal, and superintendent. He spent his last 20 years total as a superintendent, where he was at Marion Local for 9 and Newark City Schools for 11. He's a graduate of Clear Fork High School, where he scored close to 1,500 points during his career, which led to a scholarship at Ashland University, where he played for the Eagles. Doug also played without the three-point line, which affected the amount of points that he could have scored. And many in this room, that does matter, because same thing happened to you out there. Not that I would ever make that mention to anyone who asked me how many career points that I ended up with during my tenure. But the big thing about it is Doug would never say that. Doug's comment is his biggest regret that his assist record was taken away because the three-point line was taken away. So that tells me right there, because they spread the floor out with the three-point line, he would have had more assists. But Doug has been married to a wonderful lady, Corey, who's also a teacher and a coach during her educational career. They have 4 children and 8 grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, the executive director of the Ohio High School Athletic Association and my boss, Mr. Doug Yu.
Thank you very much, Donnie, and it's good to see everybody here. And love coming to Northeast Ohio when I see so many Browns hats or sweaters on a Monday. What a day we had! I did the shoe on Saturday. On the second worst two, I did the Browns when they lost to the Jets. Walking out there, it felt like I was walking in a funeral procession up the street. Felt that way Saturday, but chose not to go to the Browns yesterday. But certainly watched them and really thrilled. As I mentioned, really excited to be in Northeast Ohio, particularly Canton. It's a big week for us. We're completing our fall tournaments this week, and this is our 11th state tournament this fall. And couldn't be more happy to be in Canton, Ohio at the Hall of Fame. And I was just sharing last week on a Zoom meeting with other executive directors around the country, and they were talking about where they're playing, and they asked me where we play. Did you play at Ohio State? So no, we're the state with the Hall of Fame in it, and we're really excited to be in Canton, not just because of the facility, but because of the people in Northeast Ohio. And I can share with you that we want our student athletes and their communities to go to a place in a state tournament with a wow factor. And I always say I want them to get out of the car, off the bus, and go, wow. And when you drive here, you don't get off the bus and say, wow. You're on the bus on 77 and go, wow. I can't imagine as a high schooler or even a community member of coming up here and seeing this facility and getting to play here is just outstanding. But again, it's more than a facility, it's the people around, and our people that come here, our communities, our student athletes are treated to a first class experience. And so thank you to the community members of Akron. And I'll share with you the Stark County Visitors Bureau, and we do 28 state tournaments across Ohio. And I'll tell you, the Stark County Visitors Bureau is second to none on how they take care of our association and our member schools when we come here. So please pass that on to those folks. And then if I begin today, I do want to make sure that we thank David Baker, who is retired now, and Jim Porter, Steve Strawbridge at the Hall of Fame for making this possible. You know, we're high school athletics, and we receive zero funding from the state of Ohio. We don't know not any tax money at all. It's butts in seats. In particular, football and basketball carry 80% of our revenue comes from butts and seats at our tournaments. And you know, we're not an organization that continue to raise prices. Like, as I mentioned, I was at the shoe. I've been to the Brown Stadium. We can't charge those kind of prices to get into high school athletics. And so we need people like David Baker, Steve Strawbridge to make that happen for us financially. And I can assure you they've taken care of us. And we're here this year, and we're back next year. And if those of you, if you know Steve or or Jim now, not Dave, because Dave retired, you make sure that you keep us here financially. You probably have some pull in that. So thanks to the Hall of Fame for that. A little bit about the Ohio High School Athletic Association. We have 818 member high schools. We're the third largest association in the country. Over 350,000 student athletes participate a year in 28 sports. California and Texas have more schools that belong, but we are a big fish in this country, so to speak, with high school athletics. So we have 28 sports. We added 2 this year, girls wrestling. Before we just had wrestling, and our young ladies wrestled with the boys and participated in their tournament, those type of things. With the wrestling, the Coaches Association had a girls wrestling tournament. And I got a phone call from a parent 2 years ago as we were looking at bridging that gap to bring them aboard. And his daughter had won the state tournament in the girls in the Coaches Association tournament, but the school wouldn't put her picture up in the commons area because it didn't have this logo with it. And I share with our board, that's absolutely ridiculous that young lady did exactly everything those young men did in that program. Started practice the same time, wrestled, lifted, did everything they did, and wasn't celebrated that way. So we're really excited that now those young ladies will have that same opportunity that those young men do at the school. And I remember telling the association, we're gonna take you on, but that doesn't mean we're gonna put you in the shot with the boys wrestling and rent that big place out down in Ohio State. And our group worked with the folks at Ohio State, and our girls will wrestle at the shot their first year, along with the young men down there. And so we're excited about that. Also, and then the other sport we added was boys volleyball, and that happens in the springtime. And so doesn't go in the fall, but boys volleyball. They had 85 teams last year. They had about 85 the last couple years. And we put our logo with it and our sponsorship behind us, and we're about 170 teams in Ohio this year. And our state tournament will be down at Wittenberg University. So excited about that. So we've had a good fall. If you football fans in here, especially high school football fans, know that you had 12 straight Friday nights. You could wear short and t-shirts too. I stood in Mansfield the other night, watched St. Ed's and Gahanna, and I wasn't in a pair of shorts anymore. But in any event, we've had very good weather, and our member schools have reported to us that they've had a lot of fans out this fall supporting the kids. And we think that maybe COVID might have sprung that when you miss so many things during COVID. Might have sprung those communities to say, hey, I missed this, and supporting the students in your community. Last thing I would mention about our association, we promote education-based athletics. And Donnie would tell you, I'm a former football, basketball, and baseball player in high school. And I can't tell you how many points I scored in one game, or remember a basket I scored, or a base hit in baseball, or a option in football that I took up the field 10 yards. I don't remember any of that stuff. But what I remember are the good coaches that I was around and the direction that they put us in. And I'm sure a lot of you, but I share this all the time with young athletes. I've never gotten a job. No one has ever hired me because they said, you're the leading scorer in the history of your high school. I think I'm going to hire you. Not one time. But I've gotten every job I've ever had because of everything I learned through education-based athletics. How to be on time, how to support your teammates. And by the way, I was a 20-year superintendent. And I used to tell our personnel folks, when we'd head out to job fairs and attract people to Newark, Ohio, I'd tell them, find us some good teammates. We had 800 employees, 500 teachers. I wanted good teammates that would support each other in their buildings. It's best for kids, best for their professional growth. And also, I think what a teacher, I played on some really good teams. I've never been on a team that hasn't been smacked in the mouth and hasn't faced adversity. I see a Marion Local shirt right back there. who's been scored on how many points this year? Three in the playoffs, but probably 30 all year. Even they've been smacked in the mouth before, and you learn how to deal with adversity. Very few of us are ever on teams that always win. But, I was listening to the radio I love to come up this way because I love 92.3, the radio station, because they talk Browns, Cavs, Guardians. I about said Indians. I can't do it yet. I'm a lifer with those three teams. And I love to listen to that. And they were having a day today just talking about, somebody want to call and complain about the Buckeyes. And they said, oh, not today. We're talking about Browns and get real excited. So, and I've never lost that 12-year-old side of me that's ticked off for half a week because we lost. And my wife just shakes her head. Why do you want to do that to yourself? I can't stop. It's just, and so, but those are the things that we promote that happen in high school athletics. And I'm sure I'm looking at the face of a lot of people that can sit here and you remember, because a lot of you look about the same age I'm at, and I've never forgotten how you feel at 15 or 16 and those lessons you learned and from your coaches or your teachers. And I get that a lot of times when I run into old people I either taught in the classroom or had as a principal or superintendent or a coach. And I always say, Coach, thanks for everything you did for me. And I always say, I didn't do anything for you. Hell, you scored 20 points for me a game. What the heck are you talking about? But you recognize those kind of things. I carry a baseball around with me. And I'm one of those freaks that if I see, I remember seeing Steve Alford in the airport. I almost missed my daggone plane because I had to get a picture with him. One of those things. And sign this, sign that, one of those things. And a few years ago, I started thinking, I'm going to get a baseball. And who are my real heroes? My mother, my wife, my coaches, and had them sign that. And I keep that little baseball, where I can look somebody in the eye and tell them, thank you for everything you did for me. When I was younger, and you get to say, you did more for me, and I didn't. No way. So, but that's what we promote at the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and that's what our 350,000 kids are getting a year out there. And I would tell you, we're in a state here, not in Ohio, in this country, where we have a declining base of kids going out for sports, and we need to grab a hold of that and change that. Way down at the youth level. And I think it's a lot of because, when we were younger, you start playing Little League at 8 years old. I had a grandson that's 3, went and played T-ball on Sunday afternoons. I just shake my head and think, 3? Well, we want to get him around other kids and all that kind of stuff. But youth sports has become so big now that we need to educate our coaches that are coaching those youth sports. You're not playing in the Super Bowl. And, I'm the first one to admit, when I started teaching, I went out 77 down in Noble County, Shenandoah, in the mid-'80s. And you think you have to win at those younger levels so you can get that varsity job. And again, I got a varsity basketball coaching position when I was 26 in Crawford County at a small school called Buckeye Central. And I think back on it, that superintendent said, we're going to offer you this position because you won a lot of games at the 5th grade or 8th grade level. It doesn't happen. And I think it's got to be a good experience. And you're identifying kids in 4th grade you're picking these teams of the best kids. And no longer do you just say, Minerva, we're going to have, I'll talk about Buckeye Central. Every Saturday morning, I had 100 kids come in the gym. We split the teams up. And they had a winter league there. Now you're picking the best of your 4th grade, and you're going to travel around. And I think we're losing kids from those kind of experiences. And I don't know where I'm at. Look, I think that way. Go up there and see those youth fields at the Hall of Fame. Youth sports are huge financially. I have 2 granddaughters that are middle school volleyball players. One of them will be in 5 cities before May as an 8th grader. And I'm not talking about Cincinnati, outside of Ohio, Orlando, Chicago, those kind of things. And man, I want my jar of peanuts for Christmas. So I'm not taking my daughter off and getting involved in that. So, but I just think that, youth sports are And it's where we really got to educate our coaches. So a couple other things before I take some things. I see our good buddy Donnie over here, that, you know, some of the things that weren't mentioned about Don is that he's been on the Eastern District Board for years. And our association's made up of 6 athletic boards around the state of Ohio. Donnie was a board member there, now he's a secretary. He and his brother Gary served this area very well. They're good people and are longtime members of the Eastern District Board. Donnie also, I'm the basketball sport administrator, and Donnie is my Eastern District, East and Northeast district representative from that. He also, and this is probably one I'll just address now, because I answered this question since week 1 of playoffs more than, well, really week 3 of playoffs more than anything, because we play at the better seated site the first 2 weeks. Donnie's on our site selection committee. We don't just get up on Sunday morning and say, well, I think we'll put this game over here. And that's my Saturday nights, my Sundays, emails. I kind of just say, you know, I want to answer everybody has a question, but if it's school related, go through your athletic director or principal or superintendent from that standpoint. But when we select sites, neutral does not mean equal distance. And I answer that a lot of times because, first of all, you have to have a school willing to host. And a lot of community members, I know there was one a couple weeks ago, the superintendent and the board member. I think it was really the board member and superintendent thought, boy, I better hop on with this guy or I'm going to be in trouble. And I spoke to them on Sunday and they upset somebody and thought that, you know, they should be playing at this site. And we were playing at another site because we thought the other team would win. It had nothing to do with that. The site that they wanted to play at doesn't have power. They're doing construction. They didn't want to host. And a lot of community people say, well, this game should be played at New Philly or Dover. It's right there. Well, New Philly and Dover have to want to host that game. And so once Thanksgiving hits, our sites shrink. I can tell you, I was superintendent at Newark for 11 years. We would host soccer, football, anything they wanted us to host in the fall until Thanksgiving weekend, because that's when we started basketball and we couldn't get the workers to go to the football stadium when we were playing basketball. They wanted to watch basketball. And so once Thanksgiving hits, you know, the site selections kind of shrink a little bit. And so I thought I'd address that because I might get that question and start answering that, because I've answered that question a lot of times. And a lot of used to be you had to have a artificial field or, you know, turf field. Now everybody has turf field, almost everybody. And before it was very few, so but that's a little bit different. Okay, with that, I'll open up to any questions or, oh, we got a quick one in the back.
What is the financial benefit for a school to host a neutral site game?
Yeah. So we give that school $3,000 or $3,500 from our end of it to pay for their workers, but a lot of schools charge $5 for parking. And you know, I always call it, you get the parking and the popcorn money. Concession areas, some schools, I ask them, how'd you guys do this? So, man, our football team did parking, got $12,000 or something that way. And so that's the benefit. Yep. Either one.
Doug, is the OHSAA radio network going to be back broadcasting the games?
Yes, they are. I'm not sure who. I know Marty Bannister and some of those guys, but I know Tim has that. So yes, the answer is yes. Yep.
Commissioner, with the advent of technology, I know a lot of the high schools are going to online ticketing, ordering. Can you give me a breakdown of, let's say, a typical ticket is $7. I know there's an add-on, $1, maybe $1.25. Can you tell me how that's broke down?
Yeah, you just broke it down. It's about $1.15, I think, is what the only.
But where's it gone?
Well, $1.15 goes to the hometown ticketing group for supplying that ticket. platform, and we don't get any of that. And so we would take the $7 down from that.
And the school gets the $7?
No, the association, our tournaments, we do.
No, I'm
Regular
talking about regular.
regular season, yeah, we don't take anything from regular season.
Okay, so
School
the
does,
school would get the $7, home team ticketing gets $1.25.
Well, if it's $7 a ticket, the school would get $6 and
The school doesn't get the $7?
no, they have their own separate deal with hometown ticketing, and hometown would charge them a fee for that service. Yeah.
So that's not something the OHSAA negotiated for all 800 schools? Each school negotiated their own?
Indirectly, we negotiate because, they're going to choose our platform. Most of our member schools do, because it's just easier to keep that same one through there. But we don't take anything from regular season from our schools at all. Our revenue is based just on tournament revenue.
No, I knew tournaments, but I was just regular season.
Right.
What I was referring to.
Yeah, and we, to be honest with you, there are a few streaming and online sales and athletics. COVID they got to be smiling that COVID hit because it really pushed that in. I mean, I still remember I was superintendent when COVID hit. And technology director came in and gave me a code to get on something called Zoom. I didn't know how to spell it, for crying out loud. And I was like, I'm not using this. My goodness sakes, I couldn't survive without that. And so, those meetings and, another thing to remember, as I mentioned before, I had 800 employees at Newark. And I remember walking out of there, it hadn't been that long ago. And my personnel director walked out of her office right when I was going down. She said, "Hey, on this street, I've been trying to catch one of my workers here wants to know if she can work from home one day a week." I didn't break stride. I said, "No, we're not starting that. Nobody's going to work from home." I have two talented ladies in our office. I don't have 20 employees. I have two talented ladies in our office that have young kids. They work from home 2 days a week. They get more done at home than they do in the office. It's a great benefit for them. And so COVID spearheaded some of that. Online ticket sales the same way. And as soon as that hit, our auditors came in and said, "You can't take cash for your tournaments. We've been doing it for 100 years. Why can't we now?" Well, because you have, and let's just take basketball. And we have about 740 schools in basketball in our association. Okay. And so if you have a tournament game, you divide that by 2. That's how many tournament games are going on Friday night around Ohio. And that's how many hands are in that cash. And I'm not saying, do we got any attorneys in here that can protect me? Where's my attorney? I tell you what, I'm in Canton. Steve Craig, who knows Steve Craig? Steve's been our wonderful attorney for over 30 years, and he keeps me out of trouble. And so if you know Steve, you tell him Doug said exactly this. He might say, "Why do you say that?" I'm not calling anybody dirty, shady, or stealing. But it's amazing when we went online how much revenue we received, how much more revenue we received from our tournaments. Again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Make sure Steve knows I said that. So, the online we do now have. Before, we didn't have an option of you had to go online. You had to take your phone and buy it on here. Now we have the card readers where you can take your debit or credit card at the event and swipe it at the event. So technology is great when it works, correct? And I was in Akron last year at state baseball. Some gentleman walked up to me. He had to have 15 years on me easy. And he said, "Are you Mr. Ute?" I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "My wife told me to punch you in the mouth if I said that." Please don't do that. He was on. He didn't have his school wasn't into baseball. He just wanted to come watch a couple of baseball games. Took him an hour and a half the night before. And so, and I get that. I get it. And so it's been a struggle, but we did that for audit reasons, and we were a lot more efficient financially because of it. Not because we're collecting more money, but we're just a lot more efficient. Like 5 years ago, if you'd asked our association, "How well did you do in the fall at the state basketball tournament in March?" I don't know yet. We're still I can tell you right now, where we're at today from our fall tournaments. Soccer and volleyball are down a little bit. We sold 70,000 more tickets. 70,000 more tickets week one of playoffs this year than sold last year, and I knew that on Sunday morning. So when you're talking about financial planning, you can really roll. So let's talk about our expansion from 8 to 16 teams, because that's been a little bit of, I think the schools that make it every year didn't like going to 16. The ones that are in, let's just say, Masslin's area, that was always a 9 or a 10 or a whatever, like the 16 now. Yeah, 16. And keep this in mind, 28 sports. Football is the only sport where not everyone gets into a tournament. Football is the only sport. And I'm as traditionalist as anybody. When I was in high school, I was on a football team that lost one game my junior year. 7-3 to Loudonville, and Loudonville made the tournament, and we didn't, because they took 2 teams from our region. Then we went to 4, then we went to 8. We're at 16, to be honest with you. I would go everybody in, but Donnie needs that money at Malvern, those 5 home games, to support his tennis, his soccer, his baseball, softball, because that drives a school, those 5 home football games. And so people say, what about lopsided victories? I just looked last night. We had as many lopsided victories this weekend, the same scores, 40-something to 6, than we had week 1. People say, well, those kids are going to get injured. But I ask, what's the difference between you playing them, Newark, Ohio? Play Pick Central, Pick North, Gahanna. That's our league. Groveport, watch Le'Veon Bell run all over us one year. Taco Charlton, Jake Butt, all those guys are playing that. If you're not worried about that week 3, don't worry about it week 11. And so we haven't had those injuries. We had a 16 beat a 1 last year. We had a 15 beat a 1 this year. It's all about opportunity for kids. Can you imagine being on a 16 and beating a 1 who was your league rival that's beating the crap out of you all the time, and you beat them? Well, think about that. And so it's not going to happen every year. But they have the Kentucky Derby every year. And who won the Kentucky Derby last year? That ain't going to happen every year. So when you look at that, it's about opportunity and an all total financial disclosure. We had 4 straight years of deficit spending before COVID. We had 1 month cash reserve, 1 month on hand, a school superintendent, and declining enrollment at your tournaments. A school superintendent would tell you, if you do 4 straight years of deficit spending in your school district, you're losing student enrollment, and you have 1 month's cash on hand, I'm getting fired because I'm coming to you for a heck of a lot of mills to stay alive. And as a 20-year superintendent, past renewal levies, 70% in favor at Marion Elgin, 5 years later, 69% in favor. Asked for new money 17 years after we got the last new money, and it failed the first time. New money is tough. And so to go to our member schools and say, hey, we need money from you, more money from you, is like going from a superintendent out to you as a community member that way. So last year we profited an extra about $800,000 from that extra week of football, profited after expenses. And so if you can give kids opportunity and you can make money while you're doing it, because I would tell you, if there's no funding, there's no mission at all. And all we do for our member schools right now is charge them $50 a sport to participate in our tournaments.
Got a question back here.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yep.
Question, I talked to Donnie before about this, and I thought you could relate to the other people. Why did Maslin and Lake go to Parma?
That's all you, bro.
Yeah, I got that. And remember when I told you Donnie Spinell's on that selection committee of sites? No. So, No, and I would tell you, I know Paul Savino, their superintendent, very well. He's a good man, does a great job at Massillon. Massillon saved us during the COVID year when Columbus shut down that week. And I try to tell people, in 30 hours from talking to the administration at Massillon, we were playing a football game. 30 hours after they had everything put away, the whole thing. We are forever indebted to Massillon that way. But again, what we do with our sites, we have, if you would picture this as being a map of Ohio, we have pins in it, different colored pins for Division 1, 2, 3, who could host. And Bo Rugg, who's our sport administrator for football, has regional coordinators. So we have Scott Kaufman, who's down at Lakota West, down in Cincinnati area. Donnie's up here in the east. We have Aurora's AD. Yeah, so representatives from around Ohio on that. And we look and say, okay, if Massillon beats whomever and Lake beats whomever, where would be a good site for that game? And so we have that determined before we get up on Sunday morning and see who, or go to bed on Saturday night and see who wins. And, I can't tell, but I would tell you, if we can find a site that can fit the crowd in that we expect for that game, have the parking, but again, they have to want to host. And a lot of people look at a Massillon Lake and say, well, geez, I don't know what's in between. Say, this school's in between. Why aren't we playing there? Because they didn't want to host. Or we'd be playing there. We try to get as equal distance as possible. Because we know what the price of gas is. And, think about from our standpoint. We want to put it as close as we can. Number one is I think our job is to create the best environment we can for our kids to play in. And there's no question about communities coming out to do that. And, the second thing, why wouldn't we want to put it at a site where most people are going to come in and we raise more revenue from that standpoint? But again, they have to want to host. And I'm not getting on them for not hosting. It takes a lot to host a game. So, yep.
I was in Pennsylvania Friday, so we watched the TV version. I don't know where to start. 2:00. Why don't they show the downs? Like, what kind of input do you have on the TV coverage? A one-camera job. I was kind of shocked that here we are in Akron, one camera. I understand when the Massillon kid got hurt, and maybe because of it, more parents don't know who, they couldn't identify who was hurt. No replay. Can you just talk about the TV side?
Sure. You're probably watching on the National Federation Network.
Spectrum.
Oh, you watch on Spectrum.
Spectrum, I think.
Yeah.
It was Fox a couple weeks ago, and I think that was better. But this was.
Well, I got some emails just last night from some folks in Massillon that said we couldn't find it on Spectrum.
Yeah.
Oh.
It was on 13,
Get it by.
14,
Yeah.
couldn't come in.
Yeah. Right.
The next night.
Right.
But can you just
Probably from, you're either going to watch that on the National Spectrum has first opportunity to do the game. Okay. So are you telling me like you're not a Spectrum? Oh, because you were in Pennsylvania, you were at home. If you were at home, could have you watched the game?
No.
Okay. You would have had to buy it.
Right.
Okay.
No matter what, we're not.
Even if you're a Spectrum
No, we're not.
subscriber?
And the same ends came on.
Yeah. Well, they pick which game they have the right to do that. They do one game in the north and one game in the south. And then at the streaming piece of that, I'm sure it's just all about production costs for me.
Okay. So you have nothing to do with that.
No, we do not. No. And usually the National Federation Network has one camera. And yes, because of a production
Okay.
cost. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure, yeah. And again, we receive, Spectrum's a corporate partner of ours, but we don't have they get the right to say we're doing this game and this game. There are two games in Ohio.
Well, maybe in the future, I would love to have, if you had some kind of input, I mean, even on the block. How many downs? I mean, that was beside the point, but he didn't even know. And the announcer, he just talked incessantly, and I just really had some kind of
Well, I'll certainly talk. I'll be with the Spectrum folks this weekend and share the clock and those kind of things. Yeah.
Why don't they play at the highest speed all the way through?
I'm giving you a standing ovation. I asked that same question so many times.
I don't think it hurt.
Why don't we play at the highest seed the whole way through? We did during COVID. And nobody really seen. I'll tell you, I shouldn't probably say this in here, but when we did that 30-hour thing, you know who played in the finals? Massillon at Massillon in the finals, and told Tim Terrell at Akron, Hoban, hey, would you like us to find a site in between Akron and Canton? You know, because you're not playing. Nope. We'll play them over at their place. After the game, I said, I bet you will. You'll play anybody anywhere with that team. But, you know, we do different around the state, we do it differently early rounds. I was part of the Central District Athletic Board where we did that in the first better seed host, and people complain about why. Well, then I just have a better record, have a better seed. I think probably because from our membership, most people don't want to do that unless you're a Massillon or a Hoban or somebody that you're going to host most of the way through, and everybody have to come through your place. And my thing was, geez, the Buccaneers had to go win in Kansas City to get to Super Bowl. John Elway had to come to Cleveland a few years ago and do that, right? And I know that's pro sports, but still, it's sports. So I would like to do that, but our membership just isn't pushing that way.
Did you have to shut any football games, high school games down this year because of lack of referees?
No, but we have to play some on Saturday. And the unfortunate thing is, usually in our office in Columbus City schools are playing on Thursday night or Saturday afternoons. They're not getting the Friday night experience. We don't hire the officials for the first 10 weeks of the year. The member schools do. And so, but they are reaching out to us to say, because this country has a problem with officials, number of officials, not just Ohio, the country does. And our 818 member schools look at us and say, what are you doing about that? And I say, it's not our problem. It's our problem. Donnie knows the officials or the community of Malvern better than I do. Who can you recruit to be an official? And I'd say that to RJ, from Swan. You know Canton better than I do. You know Canton better than most Canton people do, I think. And but there is a problem. COVID hit. Some of the older stopped doing it. I can tell you, we're told by the National Federation of High Schools that we are a state leading a charge to recruit. We do online. We're trying to hit our students, trying to work with the Department of Education to give them workforce development credit for that. It's instant employability for a high school student. You don't work a varsity game, but you work middle school and freshman games. And what happens in the springtime is I'm a former baseball coach, AD. Varsity gets rained out on Tuesday night. My JVs are playing on Wednesday. Oops, I got to play on Wednesday to get the game in, and I need your official or umpire, so you can't play. And having a lot of trouble at that lower age from that. And then it truly, too, is just disrespect. Think about this. Where do most young, inexperienced officials start? At the youth level. There's no superintendent, principal, or AD around on that Sunday afternoon, and parents go. Usually, the guy that hired them is coaching, and parents go crazy and over that. And me as an administrator, I could usually sense when somebody would get out of hand a little bit. And I could walk down by Donnie, sit down, and say, "Hey, Donnie, man, you better get your focus back on the game. Be positive, because you're going to get tossed, and you're going to be embarrassed because your daughter's going to be ticked because she's playing and da da. Oh yeah, sorry, one of those." Saturday and Sunday afternoon, it gets ugly. You have 10 minutes. Yeah. Yep.
How do you decide which umpires or linesmen or officials for each game, and how do you keep going? You have to use fewer as the tournament goes on. Yeah. How do you decide who to keep?
Our member schools for our sports, the coaches and ADs rate them after they have them. So we go on a rating system. And then each area has some evaluators out there that evaluate, and then they move crews along. Like in football, the ones that'll be working this week, they've been rated by our coaches, our administrators, our athletic administrators, and then have been evaluated by evaluators out around the state for officials in all our sports. And so that's how you get to this level and keep moving on, the higher ratings you have.
Clarify something for me. You said you go to a school and you can use a credit card to get a ticket to get in the game?
If at our state tournaments, you can.
Just the tournaments?
Your member school,
Regular high school games?
you remember they can purchase something for $100, a little device that does it, each device.
So I know we went to Warren.
Yeah.
Got up there and they said, you got a ticket? No. You got to get online. Had to go out in the parking lot and have somebody get us tickets. So I said, drove an hour and 20 minutes to get here and I can't get in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's insane, isn't it? Yeah.
And you-
Was that a playoff game?
No, it was a high school game.
No, high school game,
But
yeah.
you guys wonder why they lose money?
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy, guys. You know what?
People don't know how to do this.
You know how I do technology on my phone? I throw it to my grandkids or my kids. Just download this app, Dad. No. You download this app.
Are you saying you can take a credit card to the gate?
At the state tournaments, and that is just now. That won't be long before most. Donnie, I don't know from your experience, a lot of schools up here starting to get those.
Not up here. It's
Okay.
it's starting to trickle its way up through the state where they're
Yeah.
using that.
When I was going to the game this weekend, I used to take my credit card and give it to them.
Yeah, they'll have scanners that way. Yeah.
One way back there on the left.
If you have trouble, you just tell them, they say, look this guy up right here. He'll come down and hook you up. Because I get that.
Yes, sir. Maybe it's an old question, but has there been any discussion or contemplation of separating the parochial versus public school? Having
Yeah.
separate tournaments?
Sure, it is an age-long thing because you go back now about 10 years and there was a group of public schools that approached to start that. And all our lawmakers have changed in Columbus, but we were told, the association was told back then, if you do that, we're going to get in your business. And we don't want them in our business because usually it's not good for kids. I don't mean that mean. I respect our lawmakers, but usually they're putting something in because their neighbor came over when they were mowing the yard and said, hey, by the way, my son or daughter didn't. So what we came up with is a system we call competitive balance. And so how this works, it's a 2-year cycle for us on what division you are in, okay? And we go by the EMIS numbers. Every child in Ohio is attached an identification number. And each school puts it in as an EMIS. Now, as I'll tell you as a superintendent, if I'm serving, I had 7,000 kids in the Newark City schools. I wanted my state money for 7,000 kids. We were always Division I. I mean, we never went. We were never not even close to 2, so we didn't look at that stuff. But if you're Marion local, smallest school in Division VI, one child over. A lot of Division VI schools probably would have taken that child on to keep them down to 7, I think. But so it comes out every year, and that's where your state funding comes from. And so, as a school district, as particularly superintendent, EMIS coordinators, board members, treasurer, you want every dime you're owed. And so you pay very much attention to those EMIS numbers. Okay. So the EMIS numbers come out and then we put a system in called competitive balance. So if I have, and I'll give you an example, I had Newark Catholic right across the street from one of my middle schools in Newark. Okay. If you were a student at Newark Catholic as a kindergartner and came up through St. Francis, K through 8, and then went to Newark Catholic, you were in that system, then you're not an additional weight to that number, to the 1. If you move in there as sophomore, depending on what sport, you're attached a additional weight to that 1. So you might count as a 3 or a lot of parochial schools, Moeller, I know St. X has the highest rated student count in the state because all their kids are 1 plus the weight because they come in at high school. And again, tell Steve Craig I said this. I'm not saying they recruit. It's just the way that happens. Okay? Please tell Steve I said that. I'm not accusing them of anything. So, in a public, it happens in a public school too, because I tell people all the time, public schools get transfers too, not just parochial schools. Public schools get transfers too. So if I'm not in there as a freshman, then I will be attached more than a weight to. I'm counted more than one. And so that's, you throw your competitive balance numbers in with your EMIS numbers, and that's how we divide the alignments in here. Now, last year, we had 6 public school champions in football this week, 1 private. Not that I'm counting. Yes. Yes. And I know how many privates and publics are in this year too, and how many are going to be champions. Because I get that question, and people just think the private schools dominate. But however, mathematically, for our math teachers in here, mathematically, you can't do an apples to when I say we had 6 public and 1, 17% of our schools are parochial. So it's not a 50-50 when you're looking at who wins from that standpoint. But the answer to that is competitive balance, and that has kept most people from, pushing that anymore. So we have in our office, we have no intention of doing that. None. I don't think it's good for high school sports.
When you talk about competitive balance, if you have slow learners in your school, do they count towards an athlete?
No.
Okay.
No,
What
there's
about if you have like a school, the kids get in trouble or they're learning and they make them go to a separate school, and then they bring somebody in because they don't have a school? You know what I'm talking about? The people that get in trouble.
They would go to an alternative school.
Yeah, and then they come from a different school. Do they count that?
They're still your student, so you count on.
Yeah, just that student. But if you bring a student in from another school district, does that count against you?
Yes. Well, depending on when they come in. If they come in high school, then that's when the weight kicks
Even
in.
though they can't play for your school, they can still.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If I house an alternative school and I get a student from another district in mine, no, they count on that schools. They don't count. They don't count on against my numbers.
The other thing is, what do you think the basketball tournament will be back in Columbus? I heard that they didn't even want it. They don't even want
it. You remember the day when we went to Massillon and Canton, game here, back and forth a little bit, and then Ohio State came in. We went to Ohio State because Jim Tressel wanted Dan Ross to move the tournaments there. Okay, you get 105. There was 106 and some change in there Saturday. What's this over here? 20,000, 25,000. I mean, when you look at putting 5,000 people in, 100,000 people seat, and I'm not calling anybody out, but I've not had one conversation with an Ohio State coach that's talked to me about moving the tournament there. Because in my back pocket, I would tell them, you are the only person that can make this happen. The governor asked me a year ago, Doug, is Ohio State charging you too much for their facilities? Yeah, I think so. Ah, man. Crickets. But listen, I'll tell you what, Ryan Day could make that happen. Maybe. Chris Holtman could probably make that happen. But making it happen, I'll share this. What would you do? You've got a 22,000 seat concert venue sitting at Ohio State, and you go there, and somebody in Dayton, who the NCAA uses, by the way, has a 13,000 seat. So if you put 3,500 in a girls' game in Dayton, once the crowd gets going, sounds like 7,000 people in there because it's a basketball arena. You put 35,000 people in the shot, it sounds like 1,000 in there. And then the magic number, we saved about $200,000 in expenses being in Dayton. And I'm convinced it's a better place. In 2 weekends, have 24 games, saved $200,000, putting our kids in a better environment. And, somebody from Canton sat behind me last year at the state basketball boys tournament. halfway into it, he tapped me and says, we almost didn't come. He had his son, who is now 25, tradition to go to the state tournament. His friend, his son, all four of them going to the state tournament for years. They almost didn't go to Dayton. He said, because an extra hour. And he said, what we figured out is we walk right out here and get in our car and hit the interstate. We're going. Ohio State takes us 35 minutes to get to our car. So he started doing that. But so I would tell you that, and again, here's Dayton's week. They do our girls tournament Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Atlantic 10 on Sunday. First round of NCAA playing games, like Tuesday, Wednesday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they have the boys tournament. So they have that wild 2 weeks there that they have that in there. And my whole point, the NCAA uses it. It's a great facility and great for our kids. We're done. Well, again, thank you for having me here today. Appreciate it.